All right, Msafiri family, welcome. This is Isika, your host, and today I have another episode being joined by Dr. Shingi Mavima, PhD, who is an assistant professor of history at the University of Toledo. He specializes in contemporary South African history with a focus on both its colonial and post-colonial periods, with additional scholarly interest in African literature and popular culture. His peer review publications are focused on a wide range of subjects, from Afro-based traditions in battle rap to ethnic conflict in post-colonial Zimbabwe. He is also a co-founder and executive director of the Clubhouse International, a non-profit organization dedicated to working with Zimbabwean primary schools students in community building projects. Away from academia and philanthropy, Shingi Mavima has published 2 novels, Pashena and The Leak, and as well as our 2 poetry anthropologies, Homeward Bound and My Range of Days Hold. He has also released several audio poems and songs available on all major streaming platforms. Welcome, Dr. Shingi Mavima, to the show.
Thank you for having me so much, Issaka. This is great. I believe I've been here before once. We were in person last time, and this has continued. It's been my joy seeing this channel grow, and I'm just honored to be back here talking to you today.
Absolutely. It's also my pleasure to have you again into the show. And today we are going to talk about what has been happening in South Africa. I think that in the recent days or weeks, we have seen a situation unraveling in South Africa. But at the same time, we know this is it's not new necessarily. But I just wanted to start off, if you can give us just like an update of what has been going on in the last couple of weeks, and if there's any new information that may be also emerging, please.
Indeed. So this is it's a ruckus time the world over. Let's start off by saying and the reason I'm foregrounding that is sometimes you have to navigate this the way you consume this information.
Yes.
Very tactfully. You need that sort of discernment as you work through this, just because it gets overwhelming, right? Wherever you are, you could say, sometimes you have the opportunity that if you're living in the diaspora and you live in the US, then maybe those problems are back home and you're empathizing, but they're not also on your doorstep. But we have one of those strange cases where any version of a place I call home or that we call home, there's something going on over there as well, right? So I can't even take my eye off what's happening with the US and everything to say like, let me look at home in comfort, because I also look over there and there's trials and tribulations and the other way as well. So what has happened in recent times? So first off, the xenophobic attacks or the xenophobic sentiments, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about sentiments all the way through to the egregious violence. That's not a new thing in post-apartheid South Africa, and I'm sure we'll get to talking about some of those factors. It's not a new thing. It's come up. There's been prominent waves, including in 2008, which I believe thus far have been the most violent. I remember at least 60 people died in that one. Again, in 2015, there was something else. 2020, 2021, in response to the pressure put on by COVID, there was more. But then there's been this recent wave. And this recent wave is interesting because I kept trying to find a very specific moment, where this one flares up. Like what is the incendiary moment here? And I couldn't quite find it.
Yes.
I know for a fact that the cost of living continues to tighten.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's
Yes.
always been tied to, we'll talk about the connection with the socio-economic status to this violence the more we go here.
Mm.
Um, but poor people continue to be more affected, to be, the situation continues to get tighter for them. As it continues to get tighter for them, these are the folks who are in community with a lot of the African migrants,
Mm.
because most people who are migrating, well, just by sheer numbers, right? Poor people make up the most numbers. Poor people also have the most incentive to seek opportunities elsewhere. So those are the Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, the Congolese. These are the people who make up large numbers of the neighbors of poor South Africans. So as these frustrations bubble up, the the quickest, we can use the word scapegoat, but the quickest thing to point to and say, like, you are not, you are not of this space. You're taking resources is the immigrants, and that's been sort of the path. And this way, though, an interest. So that we can say that we can put that beginning of this wave of violence to the end of March. Then
Yes.
by early April, proclamations are being made across the board. I've got a few things that I opened up here, that we're having this conversation, but it's really flared up in ways that are there's a level of organization that I'm seeing that's really scaring me compared to previous years, which
Yes.
is to say, there's been a level of relentlessness. There's been a level of some of the violence, right, is not getting intertwined. For example, a headline that I was looking at here says 5 Ethiopians killed. This came out on May 1st.
Yes.
Uh, 5 Ethiopians killed in South Africa amid xenophobic violence. So those numbers, I see they are being debated whether that's true or not. But here's the thing. Here's the part that particularly scares me. Not just the numbers, which are bad, but it says here the victims were having breakfast when the gunmen entered the restaurant and opened fire, right?
Yes.
So that's on that one. Let me see if I can find another one here that was talking about Somali folks this time around. There was this video that went. This was one of the first things that went viral. Was also a video that went viral of a xenophobic attack attempt again on an Ethiopian honor.
Yes.
Uh, um,
Do you want to share screen or not really?
oh, sure. If I could do that, yeah, I'll show you real quick what I'm looking at here. Sorry about
No, that's
that.
okay.
The This was the okay. Um, share. The one that I'm looking at right now was this one. Okay.
Yes.
Um, and the part that I'm referencing is this line here. This is the part that especially gave me pause here.
Mm.
Because up until now, this violence, right? And I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm not
Yes.
even saying it's a worse thing or whatever. But I'm
Mm.
saying the violence was often this sort of like mob attacks that would be sporadic. They would rise up and people would be attacked, and which is awful. This
Yes.
idea though of people getting gunned down,
Right.
it's another level of coordination and violence that is of serious concern. And this has actually led to one of the things that people who are sort of pushing back against this narrative, saying like, no, these are just crimes. This is not like that other thing. These people were just getting robbed. But you can also think about the targeted nature of people kind of coming into a restaurant and opening fire and not really stealing anything, right?
Right.
That there's no way you can say that's it makes it harder to believe that um, that it's just a robbery.
Yes. No, I agree
Um,
with you on that.
and there was one that I saw that was talking about Somalia as well. Indeed. But that said, um, Three Somalis, I think was the narrative that came out of the other piece that I was looking at.
Yes.
I was also looking at even away from the violence, right? So the numbers of people who've died, that's a little more nebulous. It may take us some time before we establish that for sure. But the violence is there, and we're living in an era of heightened social media, so we're seeing these things circulate a little more. There's also been discourses, diplomatic discourses with places like Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
right, working on, which is one of the countries that a lot of people talk about here, that you're seeing narratives like this, right? People seeking to get repatriated in the hundreds
Yes.
from places like this. Ghana has had similar conversations I saw as well. Zimbabwe has been having similar conversations.
Mm.
Um, let me see here. I think this might be the Zimbabwean one, right? Yeah, Zimbabwean consulate to assist scores of families displaced in xenophobic violence. So all this is going on, and it's a terrible look for South Africa, which has posited itself as sort of like the Pan-African leader on the continent, right?
Exactly.
Not just because of the size of the economy, but by the
Yes.
words that they have stated themselves about
Yes.
their commitment to the African Renaissance and so forth. So, indeed, those are some of the things that I was looking at, Issika. I want to make sure that we get to your questions, but that was a little bit of a
Yes.
of a run through of what's going on. Yeah.
Absolutely, you did. When we look into like this situation, the xenophobic situation in South Africa over the years, um, somebody may wonder, first of all, why is it that the South Africans they are specifically targeting African immigrant? Because I'm pretty sure that there are other immigrants from other places as well outside of Africa, but we don't see
Mm,
those targeted. We also, if it's the issues about, and maybe you might have mentioned a little bit, or you will mention maybe some of these factors could be related to economic factors. But when
mm,
we look at the history of South Africa and also the reality of South Africa is that South Africa, majority, let's say, of land is not owned by native South Africans or the
mm,
black South Africans.
mm.
Then why is it that they are specifically channeling their anger into fellow Africans? Um, please.
That's a very good question, and I keep trying to just because I was doing so, I came across some very interesting stuff here that I really want to make sure that we tie into to the larger conversation here as well.
Yes.
So the answer to that is there's a simpler answer, then there's going to be a more complex answer, and if you allow me, so the simplest answer is this. The simplest answer is at the heart of these incidents, of these waves of violence, is poverty, is frustration born out of poverty. South Africa, right,
Mm-hmm.
despite boasting, if not the strongest economy on the continent right now, definitely a top three economy. I'm thinking maybe in terms of sheer numbers. I know Egypt and maybe Nigeria push them close, but South Africa, by and large,
Yes.
it's the most developed country on the continent, and it's not particularly close across the board. Um, that's one. The second thing, though, is South Africa is also the most unequal country in the world, right?
Yes.
According to statistics, the income distribution, the income disparities in South Africa are so stark that you can see this visually. Let me see if I can pull up an image here real quick. I really want to show you this. I really want our readers, our viewers to see this,
Yes.
because the visual of it is stark. Um, all right, I'm just pulling up an image here. All right, I'm gonna share that, and Issachar is gonna regret giving me sharing privileges because I really want you guys
No,
to
I
see
want you
what
to
I'm.
share your screen as much as possible.
Okay, look at this. This is an image from South Africa, right?
Yes.
In Johannesburg. I want you to look at what this. Look at the very clear divide
Yeah. Wow.
between this street, between this highway.
Yep.
Look at the side. You know, sometimes you hear of inequality and you imagine what it may look like, right?
Yes.
Um, but very rarely do we get such a stark visual
Mm.
as we're doing here of tennis courts and swimming pools and space galore and green, endless green lawns here. And this, which is roads that are not paved. If you could see
Yes.
you can imagine what the sewer systems, the sanitation systems here look like. If you know these are made largely by pieces of wood and plastic bags and things like that. So the disparities in South Africa are very palpable. Now, why am I talking about that? Well, because then at the
Mm.
heart of the frustrations are these is this poverty.
Yes.
A lot of the poor people from Zimbabwe, from Mozambique, from the Congo, they go, they are going there because they're poor. They end up living in those communities we are talking about.
Yes.
Right? So as things are getting tighter,
Mm.
right? Who is the immediate person who you can point to say, like, this person is new and this person is working in this job, or this person is also getting bread while I'm getting, is getting the little bit of bread
Yes.
or as much bread as I'm getting, but I've been here for 20, 30 years, and this promise of this beautiful post-apartheid space we are coming into. How am I suffering? You're not looking at the person you're looking at is not some Norwegian investor who lives in Sandton.
No.
Even if that person might be more responsible for the squeeze you're feeling, right?
Yes.
You're not looking at the members of parliament. You're not looking at the member at the Pakistani shop owners. In fact, one of the things that I was looking for here that I was hoping to show you, an article that I couldn't believe this was happening, was that they had gathered.
Mm. Shingi, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure, please.
I find this very useful, and I regret why I should have maybe asked you ahead of time if we can, if you were comfortable like streaming this live, because maybe there's somebody who could be wanting to watch. Sometimes I stream live.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're comfortable with, or we just continue with the recording only?
Would we have to reschedule that, or what are you thinking?
No, it will just jump from where we are.
Okay, yeah, no, do what you gotta do. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So go. Yeah. Just continue. What you're about to show us.
Yeah. No, so this one, I for some reason I can't find it now.
Mm.
I wish I could, but there was another article that I was looking at where the 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 people who have risen up, the mobs that are chasing people down,
Yes.
that are hunting these immigrants down. In this image, I saw that they had gathered. Oh, I wish I could. Oh, I wish I could find this. This is great. Where they were talking to, they had gathered a few store owners,
Yes.
um, who are Pakistani, who are Indian,
Yes.
who were not African, right? But when I say African, I'm talking about ethnically African.
Yes.
And they were telling them, this is the conversation they were having with them was telling them to say, hey, stop hiring African. So the reason I emphasize that is to say they weren't even expressing a problem
Yes.
with those guys to say, like, you guys get out of here.
No.
They were saying stop hiring
These immigrants. Oh my
exactly,
Lord.
African immigrants, which is why again the term that we use is not just xenophobia, right? Because xenophobia
Yes.
is just there's a reason why people adopted it to say Afrophobia, because it's a very targeted
Yes.
form of persecution here. Indeed. Now that's a simpler reason, right? That this is the people that you're fighting for resources for. The more old school reason goes to understand with the nature of how the post-apartheid South African national project came to be. Okay.
Yes.
Now, bear with me here. Apartheid as a system was a system of exclusion. In fact, apartheid, the term itself literally means separate development, right? That's the
Yes.
sanitized way of saying, apartness. Okay. All right. So we know that. And systems of separation in which other groups get are particularly privileged depend on having two things: an in-group and an out-group. Okay. So when South Africa was unified in 1910, the Union of South Africa, after the War of South Africa, which pitted the Boers were the Dutch descendants, right? The Afrikaners and the British. They decided to end the war and said we're unifying South Africa. What were they unifying though? They were not unifying South Africa to include Amavenda. They're not including the Zulus. They're not including the Khoi and the San.
Yes.
It was uniting the white people who were now resident in South Africa as the citizens of this state, with the 80% black majority, not as citizens of the place that they've called home for thousands of years. Now,
yes.
Then in 1948, they scaled it up and apartheid begins. One of the biggest machinations of apartheid was the homeland system, at which point they then break people up and say like, hey, you are Zulu, not just like because you are proclaiming Zulu right now, but you're a descendant from the Zulus. So we're going to confine you to this area, KwaZulu, right?
Yes.
In Zululand, we're going to confine the vendors to Limpopo. They create these sort of things, which is to say, the only way you could be in the cities, right, in Joburg, was you have to have a pass to say like, hey, I work for this white man, I work for this company. That's why you could be there. Otherwise, you had to be away.
Yes.
Why am I emphasizing these things? These things are all placing emphasis on the ideas of separation of where you can and cannot be as a place within this space. While that is happening, something else is also happening. What is also happening is that beginning in the 1950s, African countries start to get independent. Remember, apartheid begins in 1948.
Yes.
Right? By 1951, 1952, we're starting to see the independence of African countries, with countries like Egypt and so forth. Then with sub-Saharan Africa beginning in 1957 with Ghana. Yes. That is not too far after the implementation of apartheid. The implementation of apartheid is reacting to the same impetus as what's happening in Egypt and Ghana. What do I mean by that? Immediately after the Second World War, the world was changing. Countries are getting independence. Countries are pushing for independence. In fact, the countries that were the colonizers are now pretty tired. Imperial fatigue, we call it. So yes. The British and the French are even like rolling back. They are not as strong as they were in terms of holding on to their colonies anymore. South Africa knows that because of its national project, which is not tied to a colonial power per se, the white settlers of South Africa need to double down in terms of holding on to their space, because they can see that the world is changing and the countries are getting their independence. So now independence begins, Ghana, then 1960, we actually call that the year of Africa, because 17 African countries got their independence that 1 year alone. Then later on, Southern Africa takes a little bit longer because that's where the settler colonies were and the Portuguese were holding on. So by the 70s, we have Angola, we have Mozambique getting their independence, Zimbabwe in 1980. South Africa, through all this, the apartheid state would not have been sitting comfortably with these nationalistic movements. So what is one of the responses that they do? Well, they make sure that this information coming across from the rest of the continent is very much censored. Because if these notions of Pan-Africanism become widespread, yes, then you know that the move is towards a Pan-African revolution, is towards independence. We need to be pushing towards that. Well, so you keep the information about what other Africans are doing away from folks, right? And yes, in fact, you paint them as, I had an uncle who from Zimbabwe who was in South Africa in the early 90s before the end of apartheid, who said we'd get questions about people in outside of South Africa being cannibals, right? I heard you guys, distorted images like that about these places because the information is being controlled. Hey, you're not like those other black people. You're better off here,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
Oh, great! I actually have a quote here that I from an interview I did with Mr. Jackie Seroke, who at the time was the Political and Pan-African Affairs Secretary of the Pan-African Congress, which is historically was the other party pushing for South Africa for an end to apartheid alongside the African National Congress. Not really as prominent right now, but still in terms of electorally, but still very much a voice in the space. Here he says, apartheid forces turned out very strong censorship system. People had no access to information. They don't know.
Mm.
The information they have is apartheid propaganda. They heard that Africa is a dark continent where people who live in the jungle and forest would come out to eat your babies alive. So the propaganda is real. And if you talk to people who can still find it today, if you talk to people, you can still find it today because of that. Generation after generation believe in that. The school system did that. Here's another person I spoke to who says, I think this is a masterpiece of what the apartheid government did. They isolated South Africans so that they had knowledge of what is happening abroad. The apartheid regime regulated the media. Imagine if there had been emphasis on saying, look, South Africa, you didn't receive your independence alone. I'll talk about that part. This is the other part that I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
So that comes out so much so that I have this story, which is a lighter moment of xenophobia sentiment being expressed. When I was in South Africa, we had pulled up. The guy who was driving me around was a Zimbabwean immigrant.
Yes.
So I'm over there doing my study abroad, and we're pulling up to this hotel, and there's an entrance and an exit, when you're kind of going through a little lot. Mm. And we had come in probably to the entrance. But there was a white guy who was coming in through the exit. Clearly something that they have done.
Yes.
The security guard runs out and he sees that it's a problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we haven't spoken to that other guy yet. We're just trying to figure out, like when you're awkwardly figuring out what and instead of telling the white guy to back up, who's obviously like coming into the wrong way, he's telling my driver, hey, back up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that this guy can figure it out. Which, whatever happens, you know what I'm saying? Let's just figure it out. But my driver is kind of like, hey, no, he's the one who should back out, right?
Yep.
Because he's the one in the wrong. This guy is adamant. But the quote that he stated here is the one that cracked me up, because you hear this a lot. It's like, hey, just move, man. He's telling my driver that, I don't understand why you people from Africa come here and cause all these problems. I'm like, wait, what do you mean from Africa? Where do you think you are? You know what I mean?
Right.
The only time I heard that statement, right, that almost like there's a distinction to him between him and Africans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean, you people from Africa?
From Africa, yes.
You think South Africa is something else? But again, you've got to think, who thinks like that? Who would think like that? Well, the European settlers of South Africa would be the ones who think that we are African. That's how we can lay claim to the space.
Yes.
But we are also not like you guys, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that schism exists. Now, let me pivot to the post-apartheid period. So this we transition with this mindset. Things get tough, right? Things get tough.
Mm.
And historically, you know that the inside group lives well. And the group outside suffers. It's been that way since the days of apartheid and before.
Yes.
Well, the end of apartheid should have meant that all South Africans are the in group. And the new people who are here now are these immigrants. That's who's here in significant numbers. That's who should be on the outside as far as we're concerned. Why am I living closer to the way that this outsider lives than I am to the people who from whom apartheid should have ended, right? For the people whose apartheid centric benefits should have ended from this. So that is the frustration. That's why people aren't thinking about those guys because they don't live with those guys, right? But they already have
Yes.
this animosity towards towards African immigrants going back, not only because they're their neighbors, that's who they're seeing eating out of the same pot that they eat, but also because there's been decades of sort of this social engineering towards outsiders, and in particular African outsiders. Indeed.
So definitely that social engineering, it's working perfectly. And thank you for just explaining that historical, part of it, that this is a system that has been set from
Mm.
apartheid. Um, in which case they are the European immigrants who are in South Africa, who are part of this government. I mean, who really set this up by first of all telling that planting, controlling the media, what is coming outside of South Africa, and also
Mm.
there's this element that I'm also learning that basically engineering people such a way they are saying that they are the people outside of South Africa. They are different. They are not like South Africans. Like
Mm.
they um, like they hit other people, things like that. And so then this generation of South Africans grew up seeing themselves as different from other Africans, and that's why that Gerd will say, "You people from Africa," which is
Mm.
extremely absurd.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's surreal when you hear it. Absolutely.
just in this, is there hope? If this is a mindset that has been planted into South Africans to now extend that they are, it's coming out. And as again, as you said, you know, when immigrants move, most likely they will live with these South Africans. And so the frustration that they have, they are more likely to channel it towards, these immigrants who are nearby. But the people who social engineer this, they are safe and they are continuing to prosper.
Mm.
Is there hope?
Hope is it's tough to see that, because what happens time and again is these things flare up. You know
Yes.
what I mean? As we spoke about earlier, in 2008, I believe like 60 people died. That one might have been the worst one yet. And then we see these things every few years. This flares up. The hope, the hope that I have. Okay, this is the thing that makes me feel. Past a certain point, I was more hopeful,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
Because I spent time in South Africa. You know what I mean? Not only do I have family over there, every couple of years I go there and I spend a month or two, and I've got to say this just in case it comes out a little bit differently. I absolutely love South Africa. I gotta say that I love the space itself. I love the people that I've met, and I love things South African. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
when the World Cup comes around, we'll be rooting for them. When the Springboks are doing the thing, when they're doing Miss Universe, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? It's Mzansi for sure.
Mm.
Um, I just want to say that. Um, and so and I go to institutions that are very dedicated towards Pan-African values. One place that I spend a lot of time in when I'm in Pretoria is a place called Kara Heritage Institute, very much based on those principles. I spent time at a place called Freedom Park, which is this commemoration of just the Pan-African effort that brought us to an end of to the end of apartheid. Oh, before I answer your question, let me add this one detail. Sorry, something that I had hinted at earlier. Then
Yes.
I'll answer your question, which is to say, I was talking about folks not being taught about other African nations, right? The other part, this
Mm.
part is mind blowing. That the anti-apartheid movement, you know,
Yes.
was fought in ultimately what led to the collapse of it, in addition to the sacrifices made by the South Africans, and the South Africans were fighting. You never want to dismiss that. The region came out in full force to such a point that that is often described as apartheid's third line, I believe, or something or third frontier, which is to say, let me see if I can find some numbers for you here.
Absolutely.
But there was a group called the Frontline States, right, which is all the neighboring states. And as more and more became independent, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, they joined in and helped put pressure on the apartheid state,
Yes.
right, towards the dismantling. And that wasn't just some spiritual, we are cheering you on from afar, right?
Yes.
I do want to present with you some information here that some statistics. Right, I have here. Oh yeah, here's what I have. In what has been described as the second front of the anti-apartheid struggle, the neighboring countries' involvement in anti-apartheid activities saw the death of more than 100,000 people between 1980 and 1986 in those countries. All right.
Yes.
Displaced more than 1 million and cost the region more than 90 billion US dollars. A figure more than 3 times the region's GDP for that era, right?
Wow. Yes.
With the end of apartheid marking the fall of the final domino of explicit imperialism on the continent, the rest of the region views South Africa as the last bastion of hope, which may drag the continent out of its current malaise. After all, the country's GDP constitutes more than 50% of the rest of the regions by itself, right? South Africa alone, at some point it was several times that this is actually after the other economies have grown somewhat. So I'm saying that that's also something else that is not as known. So the reason I was talking about things like the Kara Heritage Institute and other spaces like that is like I felt like there'd been more deliberate. Listen, I'll tell you one more thing about the disconnect here, right? This disconnect. Yes. I was there at that space, at that institute I'm talking about, which I think is beautiful. But the woman who was they'd written a book. A book had been written by the Ministry of Education. This is the work that I'm talking about. That I feel like people are doing the work to integrate us a little more. Okay. And the book that had been written was the series of books that was written was focusing on different African revolutionaries. So the Samora Machel, Julius Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, and so forth. Kwame Nkrumah, you do that, right?
Yes.
The woman who was introducing the minister who was going to talk about these books, she gets on stage. She's like, "Oh yeah, and these are great books. We have here Julius Nyerere. Some of you guys may know him.
Yeah, of Tanzania, I think.
No, hold on. I'm impersonating her. Jomo Kenyatta. I think he's from Kenya. Then she goes on. I was like, wait a minute. You are introducing this book series in this space that I expect people to actually have a little more knowledge about these things. And you don't know Jomo Kenyatta is from Kenya.
Yes, right.
Don't know nothing else about him. But you don't know that you're like, what are you doing? So anyway, what little hope I had started to be dampened by seeing those things. But these numbers are what's really kind of like making me lose faith a little bit. I will share my screen so your folks can see this as well here, so that I'm not making things up.
Absolutely.
Look at this. South African social attitude surveys included the following question. Please indicate which of the following statement applies to you. I generally welcome to South Africa. A, all immigrants. B, some immigrants. C, no immigrants. And D, uncertain. In 2003, about a third, 34% of South Africans said they would welcome immigrants. Then 32% said none, and 35% said some. So it was like almost like an equal third, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But around the time of COVID, the research data began to show an upswing in anti-immigrant. About a quarter of those, so down from 32, said they would welcome immigrants.
Yes.
By 2025, that number was down to 15%, right? And
Yes.
the
Wow.
one for like I wouldn't accept any at all went from 42%, went up to 42%. So why? So you can tell the direction is trending.
Yep.
Is a little less. It's hard to remain hopeful
Yes.
when things like that are happening, and it's not as if South Africa, So as far as the tensions are going, that's the anger is not getting any better, but also the initiating factors are not getting any better.
Mm.
Right? That is to say, like the gap between the rich and the poor is getting wider. The In a roundabout way, a woman who has risen to be one of the people who's the leaders of this xenophobic movement, going by the name of Queen V, I believe, Jacinta or something. She's been like a firebrand, being in the media, confronting different immigrants herself
Yep.
on live and so forth. But she was asked about the frontline states in April, and the response pretty much just amounted to, I don't know what that is. You, as a great defender
Right.
of the people of South Africa, 30 years removed, we're not talking about some 1800s history
Mm-mm.
here, the 90s,
Yes.
right? Um, you don't know who the frontline states are? So it's almost like there is no interest in that. There's no interest in that in learning anymore. It's as if like we found the perfect scapegoat for everything that goes wrong around here, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I'm not really hopeful. Crime continues to be on the rise as well because poor people get involved in crime. So I want to be clear here that this is also, I'm not just sanitizing that folks are coming in and everybody who comes in is some poor immigrant with a heart of Christ, and they do all these things. Some people do come in and get involved because get involved in crimes, but those crimes South Africa also just has a very high crime rate.
Yes, it does.
Like an incredible crime rate. So what am I saying? So it just becomes like, oh, that guy is from Kenya, right? But you can point to that. After like 99 South Africans have been arrested, then there's one Kenyan, then they said, oh, see, these are the immigrants who are doing. They're like, wait,
Yep.
the problem you're actually talking about is just a big crime problem here. And of course, because these poor people are in your communities as well, they might get involved in things like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, but it's easy to point to folks and say like, yeah, but even the numbers, I also had those numbers that showed the number of migrants who were in prison in South Africa and so forth. And you could see that the gap, it still didn't support that they were contributing significantly or contributing disproportionately to the crime rate. I'm saying, if anything, they were underrepresented based on like, you know what I mean by underrepresented? To say like, if you say like there's 20% of people in here, but they make up 10% of this thing, clearly the problem is not them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
it's interesting to hear that, especially the scapegoating, really finding an excuse to put a blame on our people. And it's amazing because even for the short life that I've lived, I've seen scapegoating like happening in so many areas. And I'll give you an example. When I was when I joined high school, we were with the boys that we joined the school. There's this term in Swahili called wageni, and that is like visitors.
okay.
And so since we were
Right.
new, everything that bad happened, it was always wageni. As in, it is these visitors. It's these new people. So, but it's the same idea of scapegoating. Like there is a problem, but
Right.
because you don't want to face it head on, you blame it on the people who are the most vulnerable, either they are new, they are immigrants, and I mean, we see it across, across the continents. Even in the United States, you hear the same sentiment.
Right,
Um,
right, right, right.
it's this. Is this immigrants who are taking our jobs? Is this immigrants who are making, let's say, for example, the trucking business to be failing? Because so many immigrants are into trucking business, and they are taking just any freight, for
Mm,
cheap. So you see it across the board, across continents, across institutions, even, and
mm,
it's sad to see that.
mm-hmm,
Just tell
mm-hmm,
me
mm-hmm.
from like something little, but it's also happening in a higher level. Um,
Right,
the other
right,
thing
right.
that I've wondered is with these things happening, has been happening for years, as you mentioned, back in 2015, sometime in, probably even going back to 2008, and
Mm-hmm,
also, as you mentioned, around like 2021, 2020, and now. You
mm-hmm.
would have thought that the government of South Africa, if it actually wants this not to happen, that it'll be doing something. And in fact, the most recent one, in my own, I observed that it didn't seem that the government was bold enough to stem these things down. What
Mm, mm.
is what's the government of South Africa doing? Is it doing enough, or they need to do more?
Ah, it's South Africa. The government of South Africa is an interesting prospect because one of the things that it's celebrated for is having even one of the more progressive constitutions. Coming out of apartheid, there's things to celebrate about the way that South Africa moves. But one of the things that South Africa struggles with
Mm,
is this idea of sorry about that of being the government, the
mm,
AN government is the idea of being a broad. What they describe themselves as that they are a broad church. What they mean by a broad church is in a bid to be all encompassing, to encompass people of they are pretty centrist in their politics, but in a bid to encompass everybody, accommodate a space where people who are members of the South African Communist Party and the uber capitalist neoliberal folks like the president right now, Cyril Ramaphosa, who is one of the wealthiest people on the continent,
mm.
can also be a member of, right? This kind of, you know, then you add that to that also means even when they became independent, when they were at the end of apartheid, that was largely like a negotiated settlement. You may have heard talk of some people saying like actually Mandela let us down with the way that
Yes.
was arranged.
Mm,
A different conversation, but but I say that to say it's they are masters of playing the middle ground of things.
yes.
Uh, so right now you may get people like groups like the Inkatha Freedom Forum (EFF), right?
Yep.
That are opposition groups that are speak more vociferously against xenophobia. But
Yes.
these guys, they always give very diplomatic statements. Let me see here. I think I actually had their statement pulled up here.
Mm,
Um, I had one from the AU itself, but I had one from. Did I have one from? I thought I had one from South Africa. I may not have it pulled up, but in any case, their rhetoric is usually very well. Don't do that, and we're gonna do our best
right.
uh, to make sure that people are brought to book and so forth. But even then, there's often some little comments made that are like, but also these immigrants need to get it together. Which, if you're already kind of like on the hunt, that's all you need to hear. You know what
Yes.
I mean? That's all you
Yep.
need to say. Like, oh, the government said. You know what I mean? So yeah, sure. These are huge. The challenge of providing security or bringing these things is a huge undertaking, especially when you give the idea of the civil uprisings. It's always in the urban areas because that's where the people live, right? But
Yes.
remember, this is so viscerally part of South Africa's history, right?
Yes.
I'm not just talking about being violent. I'm not just talking about being violent. I want to be clear here. But I'm saying that South Africa being a more urbanized country than other places across the continent, the most
Mm.
urbanized, place in Africa. The struggle for the end of apartheid, the reason why it could take with Frelimo in Mozambique and MPLA in Angola and ZANU and ZAPU in Zimbabwe is because those places were largely rural areas. So the organizing was being done over there.
Yes.
The way that South African resistance had to be had was through these urban disruptions. So you talk about the Sharpeville massacre of the 1960s, or you talk about the Soweto uprisings of the 1970s. The idea of that when things get tough and we don't like what's going on, we rise up in the cities and we burn things and we target folks.
Yes.
This is the way that urban South Africa has dealt with issues before.
Mm.
The government struggles historically has struggled with making sure that they keep that, and that it brought apartheid down. You know what I'm saying? That's how.
Yes.
So, and this government is so they should be doing more for sure.
Yeah.
But what they should be doing more of is not in response to this particular moment. At this point, it's just meeting fire with fire, right? What
Mm.
they should be doing more of is in the off season. What can they do to one work on border security if that's really like that's the gripe that folks have, right? What are they doing with the immigration policies once people are inside? Is the way these people who, by the way, are the lifeblood of the economy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, they get these permits. So, but now it's reached a stage where it's not even mattering. There's people who are there legally who are like, okay, you are obviously not from here, right? So
Yes.
the discourse I was reading, someone that said like whether you're here legally or illegally, you should consider leaving,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that work doesn't happen while the fire is raging. That work has to be done. The work to educate people, the work to create facilities and so forth has to be done when in better times, when the
Mm.
tensions have subsided. But
Yes.
I really get the impression that, especially under the other thing too, is the ANC's popularity has been declining.
Yes. Big time.
This this time they're here by way of a coalition government,
Yeah.
right? Down from
Yeah.
57% to like 40% this time. So they are also being very playing both sides politically, if that makes
Yes.
sense. They're
Yes.
also we don't want to upset people too much. You know what I'm saying? We want to make it seem like we're too against this thing. So they've been very soft on that. If anything, the tougher, more radical rhetoric against this has been coming from the opposition groups, right?
Yes.
From the opposition groups and other civil communities. Indeed.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, because of everything that has been happening in South Africa, we have seen the rest of the continent, rising up and offering statements, people voicing their frustrations as well. Um, I Is that what other people are doing around Africa? Are they doing enough? Should other governments around Africa do more? Like summoning the ambassadors in of South Africa or something like that. How should other governments be responding? I know you mentioned about AU, but um, what would you say?
Yeah, well, I saw that the ambassador to Ghana had actually spoken to folks. The Zimbabwean consulate we spoke about the this one. Um, well, let me share the screen real quick just to show some of the conversations happening.
Yes.
This one, I was out of Nigeria. No Nigerian killed in South Africa protest. So the federal government has said that no Nigerian was killed and no Nigerian owned property was destroyed. This is from May 3rd, so a couple of days ago.
Yes.
Um, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odemego Ojukwu, discussed this. So here, I'm only sharing this to say that this is coming out of a conversation that she has had. Uh, and this is what's making it difficult, right? Because you can say it's like, however, noted that 2 Nigerians died in separate incidents unrelated directly to the protests involving interactions with security personnel. So now it's getting harder to tell what deaths are part of this, or if they're just like deaths that are happening due to the crime. But I use this as an example to say that these conversations are happening. Should they be doing more? I think when it comes to South Africa, they are doing what they can, and I'm not saying that as a way to vindicate them or whatever. I'm just saying that what is it that they can do?
Yes.
Because of South Africa's relative economic might, they call shots in the region in such a way that what is the pressure that Mozambique can put on South Africa? What is the pressure that Kenya can put on South Africa in a way that is realistic? You know what I'm saying? I'm not just talking about to say like, hey, you guys need to then repay lip service or something, right? What is it that there are no sanctions that folks can put on South Africa? Because South Africa, BRICS nation, I'll be very surprised if you know, if anything, the biggest commodity that South Africa gets from many of these places is the people who go and work over there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know. But they trade with their trading partners are more are more akin to Brazil and Russia than they are to Central African Republic and Guinea. You know what I mean?
That's right.
That's you know. So what can the governments do? I think of the fundament, and this part is almost gives some legitimacy to these people rising up in South Africa, and I hate to do that, is they need to get their stuff together back home so that their folks aren't flocking to South Africa and because they have no options.
Yes.
Right? Zimbabwe, Mozambique, let's get these jobs back up and running. Of course, a lot of people still migrate to South Africa because those are the way that the economies work, right?
Yes.
But don't let it be the only option. Don't let it be a thing that is, what are you going to do when you graduate high school? I'm going to go to South Africa. That is such a dysfunctional place for a country to be.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That should be like an option that we're like, man, I really couldn't find opportunities here, so I'm going to do this. Or I do this thing very well and they're hiring over there, so I'm going to go over there. You know what I mean? Or I have a particular interest. But for it to just be like, your career aspiration is that you're going to go to South Africa, it's such a crazy thing. It's a justified thing on the basis of the individuals, because what are they going to do? But as a country, that should indict you as having failed.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think those places need to take that seriously. They also need that's in the long term. And in the moment, they also need to find ways that they can provide support for the immigrant communities with a quickness that whenever things like this break out, if people need to leave right away, we have clockwork type machinery that gets people out of there, or that provides some kind of refuge for people in that situation. Because we know, again, that this happens every half a decade or so in South Africa. You know,
yes,
this is not the first time. You know, we are not being blindsided by these things. These are things that we know are happening, especially when you consider too that for many of these countries, these aren't just people who are just like in South Africa per se, just doing their things, or citizens of them who ran away from home. The remittances from South Africa are a significant part of the GDP in these countries as well, right? So
yes,
it is not only keeping your citizens safe, it is also recognizing that as a large part of your own income as a nation, and why it's important that be protected and done right, indeed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for those comments. I am going to ask you maybe the final questions here, and then we'll call it a day, and then I'm sure down the road we'll have you again because we want to learn
So,
more about the African history and then the struggles that Africans are going through. There
sounds
is an effort, and especially among young people, whereby they are calling for one, Africa, the unity of Africa.
good.
And when you see some of these things, popping up, like either is, xenophobia in South Africa, or um, if is maybe some uprising, tribal clashes in Ethiopia, and these kind of things. I'm just curious: is the African unity an illusion, or this thing it's possible?
Um, ah, well, because me, I strongly identify as a Pan-Africanist.
Yes.
So it hurts me every time that I speak against the possibility of something that I that I
Right.
that I otherwise want. The
Mm.
idea of one Africa, goes back, the likes of Marcus Garvey were talking some version of that. Then when Kwame Nkrumah came into power, he really ran on that,
Mm.
which a compromise of that was reached and became the Organization of African Unity, which became the African Union. I think we are, on one hand, watch how two things that sound opposite can be true.
Yes.
I think on one hand, we are further away from ever integrating into one giant country. I think the moment that people would have most felt that way about would have probably been like in the 60s, 70s, coming out of when we're imagining what a post-colonial. I think people are so rooted now in their individual
Yes.
nationalistic identities,
Mm.
and the leaders in particular recognize the potential loss of sovereignty. Now that we've actually seen how dictatorships develop across the continent, I know people will be like, "Ah, man, we're gonna let that guy take over. What if he decides to run it like Iran,
Mm.
Uganda, hypothetically, whatever, you know, just to say a country like that." So I don't think that we are ever really gonna get there. Well, I'm a little less optimistic that the vision of a united Africa is ever gonna happen. However, what we're gonna continue seeing more of, right?
Mm.
Because that united Africa is almost like a top-down approach. I
Yes.
think we're gonna continue seeing a bottom-up integration of the continent. What do
Mm.
I mean by let me share let me share the slide real quick that I
Bless you.
teach in one of my classes when I'm teaching about the
Yes.
history of East Africa, in particular the Cold War years and so forth. There's this
Mm.
slide we get to here that looks like this. Um, and here we're just talking about the importance of Swahili. But the article I wanted to draw your attention to was the one over here, which
Yes.
says Kiswahili as an antidote to xenophobia in South Africa.
Mm.
Um, right? This they were just talking about, this was an opinion piece,
Yes.
right? This wasn't like a policy piece or that. But this was
Mm.
just a suggestion that if we are more intentional with things like that, to say like, hey, Swahili already pretty popular in East Africa, the most spoken indigenous
Mm.
African language, right?
Yes.
Depending on how we feel about Arabic being indigenous. But in any case, in terms of like a Bantu language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and because of that, it is significantly spoken in South Africa. Minor numbers, nothing compared to the indigenous South African languages, nothing even compared to a language like Shona, for example, which is
Yes.
from Zimbabwe, because there's a lot of languages. But still decent numbers, just because if you get somebody from Kenya there, but someone from Tanzania and the Congo and Rwanda, there's a
Mm.
chance that they might speak that language as well. But it wasn't taught in classes, right? You saw that on that slide I was showing, that it was even only being taught in Ethiopia, which is Ethiopia is right there in East Africa,
Yes.
and like the headquarters of the OAU, you would think that is one of the places that has long embraced Swahili.
Yes. Yeah.
But even that's pretty brand new.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the reason I bring that up is I think things like that are going to be the ones that are going to integrate the continent, right? As more people talk about, hey, we should uh, have more people learning Swahili over there.
Yes.
Different pockets of nations are doing the free visa zones, those
Yep.
things.
Yeah.
These are the things that are going to do that. So I think ultimately, yes, there is going to be some semblance of an integrated Africa. It's not
Mm.
going to come from the top down mandates. If anything, those people actually might be the people who actually like resisted the most.
Yeah.
But I think the continent itself, because the people, like the young people that you're talking about,
Yes.
want that sort of integration, right? Want
Yes.
that idea of, even when you say Afro beats and you're like, oh, this is Afro beats right here, and you know
Mm.
that Nigeria and Ghana are prominent in it. But you check something out and you're like, oh man, this is fire from Sierra Leone right here. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we're with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the integration is going to happen more on the bottom up because the people
Mm.
move in that direction culturally and
Yes.
then and so forth. It's not gonna because it's ultimately it's not gonna happen because some higher up said this is what has to happen. If they do that, it'll be just them conceding that the people have spoken and they want to move in that direction. So that's where the hope lies for me. I don't necessarily see it as like political unity in that way, but I
Mm.
definitely see a more socio-cultural integration continuing indeed.
No, I agree, and I have a tendency to believe that there is a lot of external influence and control when it comes to like even organization like the AU, even when it comes to like local governments. Like let's say, for example, the Kenyan government, you may find there's another external hand that has a pre grip on some of the decisions that they make, the policies that they make, and so that's completely makes a lot of sense as people
Mhm.
reorganize language Swahili continue to spread, which I agree with you. There's a lot of countries, and I I I saw one group in Nigeria that was moved to East Africa to learn Swahili, and they're moving back to Nigeria to start teaching Swahili. So that was
Uh,
like, wow, this is amazing. And since it's a Bantu language, as you said, it's
mhm.
possible some of the it would be easier for for the Bantu people actually to learn Swahili
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
much
yeah, yeah.
quickly. So
Just when you were talking earlier, we always talk about this, right? Is to say
mm,
when you're talking about the visitors,
yes,
in Shona, the more common term is muyenzi, or we also say muyeni, right? You know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying? When you say
yeah,
muyeni, right?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
go to South Africa, like again, similar words you might find in those. So I was just saying, like, yeah, usually when I just hear like if I read enough Swahili,
yes,
I can pick up the context right away.
right
It's
away.
yeah, that's what you're talking about Bantu languages. Yeah. So just as a tangent, indeed,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited for that time that they will introduce Swahili in, let's say, majority of African schools, because I believe that will be a difference maker. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as we wind up, I want to give you an opportunity if there's anything that you haven't mentioned, you would like to mention concerning what is happening in South Africa or in Africa in general. I
Mm-hmm.
just want you to do like some parting words before we head this show.
Um, yeah, this is I've been thinking a lot about things. I've been thinking a lot about I have my own I have a YouTube channel called Pan-African Conversations where I have some of these more, not too many interviews, a few interviews, but more just breakdowns of situations.
Yes.
Um, you know, so I won't be doing this one because I feel like we did the work here today.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for according that. But recently I spoke about when Ghana led the African nations and others around the world without UN mandate to declare transatlantic slave trade as the worst crime in humanity and sort of talking about reparations. Then
Mm.
I spoke yeah. So I've been doing videos like that, right? I've been talking about. I spoke about the Kenyans in Haiti. I was talking
Yes.
about Liberia, U.S. relations, and so forth. The reason I'm mentioning all these things is the answer is as old as time, and that answer is, to quote the African American revolutions, "Black child, you are on your own." You know,
Yep.
I say that to say, I'm not saying that to dismiss our friends and other people we work with, but we need to be so jealously inward looking as we figure out solutions for our problems here.
Yes, absolutely.
The problem is not going to come. It's what you're talking about with our governments being beholden to other groups. I think that the new AU building, beautiful building
Yeah.
in Addis Ababa, I think it was 80% funded by the Chinese or something like that. Like, what are we doing? Like,
Yep.
what is the sovereignty in that? You
Right.
are on your own. This problem is this idea of always looking outward and looking for breaks. You know what I mean? We're going to have to
Yep.
figure this out by ourselves.
Yep.
And maybe at the heart of that, wow, it is so inhumane. And by the way, I must say this because we can discuss the policies and so forth and ways forward. I think we need to agree on one thing. Oh, I need to just make sure we're not mincing our words here. The attacks that are happening on people and so forth, right? That's inhumane.
Yes.
There is no two ways about it. There is no the history taught us this or the fact that the economics are like this. That is inhumane. If you
Mm.
hunt people out and
Yep.
they're defenseless and you burn their livelihood and you beat them or you kill them, it is inhumane behavior. There is no Ubuntu in that. There is no justification for that.
Yes.
Those are things that if you saw on TV happening in a war, those would be war crimes.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like we don't even endorse that in war. So I want to make sure that before we get to nuances about things, we agree on what we are looking at here is inhumane.
Mm.
The reason I said that is like I wanted to say that before I said like you can almost understand the frustrations, not the actions, the
Yes.
frustrations around that get people riled up to act like this because we haven't even started to scratch the surface of of people-centered solutions, also solutions tailored for the people. The fact that again, the economic distribution of South Africa remains like it did during apartheid and maybe even widening should not be a thing, right? We need to resolve these problems so that we don't have to come back here and react and then give people impetus to say, hey, you see what's happening in South Africa? So I'll say this thing because again, so many connections here. And
Yes.
when this U.S. administration started, and Elon Musk was in their ear
Yep.
talking about, the white people are going through this and whatnot, which again was a bunch of nonsense. I've done a video on that talking about. In fact, recently you saw that hundreds of them were going back to South
Yep.
Africa. Right?
Yep.
I've never known people to willingly go back to a place to their place of genocide
No.
before anything changed.
Yeah.
But then the people will look at that and say, look, we told you those people are fighting. Look at what's happening right now, right? This is
Yep.
what gives even the rest of the world this sort of material to continue to put the continent down. We need to get it together, and Senegal should be the African champions. That's the last thing
Yep.
I'll say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Senegal, they are the African champions. It should be a question about it. I totally agree with you on that. Hey, Shigi, Dr. Shigi, where can people find you if they wanted to follow your work?
Thank you so much, man. As I was talking about, the name is Shingi Mavima. If you look me up, I think my website may be down right now. I need to get in touch with my website host, but shingimavima.com. But anyway, just look up Shingi Mavima. You'll find me in many places. Since we are on YouTube, for the most part, you can find me. I've got a channel on here called Pan-African Conversations. That's where I have this. That's why I have these things. But in most other places, if you just look up Shingi Mavima, I have a presence on most social media spaces. I've got a Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn. I got a TikTok where me and the Safiri gang here break bread often. So yeah, find me on any one of those places. And yeah, my email address is easily available. So just find Shingi Mavima. Contact me. I live for this. I'm not one to hide from folks. So if you ever want to hit me up, if you just want to resources for some of the things that I was talking about today, and so forth, just contact me and we'll make sure we do that. Indeed.
Awesome.
So
And expect in the future, I will be reaching out to you because I want to bring you into more shows, especially when it concerns the issue concerning Africa and how Africa can be better.
absolutely.
And to all subscribers, thank you for the support. And if you have not subscribed, please go ahead and smash that subscribe button. And also, that notification bell. Make sure you turn that on. So once we post, you can receive the notification and share with friends. This is a good this is a good conversation we had, and we'll continue to have because as Shige said, hey, African child, you're on your own. I want to say that it is true. So let's learn from each other and fight this battle of freedom, if I may say,
Absolutely.
to the end. So, and also visit Dr. Shingi Mavima sites, TikTok, as he has mentioned, Facebook, YouTube, and also take a look at what he's doing, learn more from his videos, and obviously subscribe into his YouTube channel as well.
I appreciate you. Thank you so
Lastly,
much.
I want to thank you again, Dr. Shingi Mavima, for coming in all the way from Toledo, but originally from Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for coming. I thank you, and thank you for being a friend of this show.
My pleasure, for sure. Indeed.
Yeah.